Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I felt like it was about time for me to sit down and give you a life update because I feel like so much has changed in my life since I last chatted to you like this. I can't even remember when the last time was that I did this sit down life update kind of video, but I imagine, my life is very different now. All for the better. I feel like I'm in a really good, happy, positive place. I'm in Bali. You can probably tell from like the background vibe. But yeah, my last video was actually filmed in Bali and I've been back in London since, and then I decided to come back to Bali. That wasn't part of the plan. But yeah, I've decided to just come and spend a lot of time out here because I just love being here. It feels very peaceful and it's a very happy place. For me anyway, it feels like my happy place. So yeah, I came out a few weeks ago, I think in April, and the plan was to spend a few weeks here. I think 6 weeks was the plan, and to kind of give it a go and see how I like it, because I'd been out here to Bali a few times over the past few years and I've always loved it. It's always felt weirdly like home, even though it's always just been very much a holiday. And I thought, you know what, I feel really drawn and pulled in that direction. I'm going to spend a few weeks and see how it goes, and if I like it, if I still love it, then maybe I could split my time between London and Bali. And as you know, I mean, those of you that follow my channel and have been here for a few years, you know that I absolutely thrive in the sunshine. I basically, like, my dream has been to just follow and chase the sun, and it just hasn't been possible for various reasons. I think we always feel pulled or drawn to stay, like, in the place that we grew up, or the country at least that we were born in. And I just always felt like chasing the sun is this unachievable dream of mine. And particularly with the past 2 years with COVID, it literally has been impossible. But that aside, the past few years, I've just always kind of felt like I have to be in London. I did have that little 2 months, I suppose, I think it was 2 or 3 months in India, but they were very different circumstances. That wasn't like because I felt compelled to go and move abroad, and it was like a place of choice, I suppose. That was very much like based on circumstances at the time. So exciting nonetheless, absolutely loved it, the most incredible experience. And that probably almost made me realize how easy it is to actually relocate. So that was an amazing like first step, I suppose, in this direction. But then with COVID and the pandemic, it was time to go back to England for a while, for 2 years. And then when all of that started easing, I was like, I feel like I can make my life what I want of it, you know? Like, we actually have so much more control in that respect than I think we give ourselves credit to. So that's why I ended up spending those 6 weeks in Bali from April until June. I felt so sad about leaving Bali, like genuinely had this heavy heart when it came to leave. So I didn't. I was like, why am I so sad about going back to a place that I actually don't need to go back to? Like, there's actually no real ties or responsibilities, I suppose, in my life. So I was like, if I'm feeling this sad about it and it doesn't feel right to go back right now, why am I? So also with the help of my friends that I've made out here, they convinced me to stay. So I ended up staying 1 extra week. Would love to stay, that I just, never came back. But yeah, I ended up staying 1 extra week. So I had these amazing 7 weeks in Bali, in Canggu, and had this lovely little villa to myself, which was heaven. Just absolutely loved having that base, and found myself part of this really beautiful community, friends that I'd made along the way, mostly through my friend Sophie, who I knew from London beforehand. She moved out here a couple of years ago, and she just like welcomed me into Bali with open arms and introduced me to lots of her friends, and just instantly felt very at home. And I feel very fortunate and grateful for that, for her and for everyone else that I've met along the way here. So yeah, I came back end of June and went back to London, back to my home. And I'll be completely honest here, like, as this is a life update, I moved into my new home in September and I never really fully settled into that home, which makes me really sad, and I really don't like having any regrets. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, there's a part of me that feels like buying that home was a bit of a mistake. Not fully, because I'm so proud of myself for being able to buy that house completely off my own back, and I do feel really proud of myself for getting on the property ladder. I also feel like there is this pressure that I definitely felt, at least, to get on the property ladder, and I think turning 30 was a big time for me, although I think I would have, I bought that property at 29, so it was in September of last year. I turned 30 in May this year while I was in Bali. But I definitely feel like the age pressure played a part of this feel towards needing to buy a property, which is crazy, like, when you think about it. Like, why are we putting all this pressure on ourselves? Because I wouldn't say it's like any particular person put that pressure on me. I guess society as a whole, where I'm from, at least in the UK, it's like a big thing, this timeline of like, buy a property, have babies, get married, all by a certain time in your life. And I've definitely felt all of those pressures in my life. Even now, like, they're still there. You definitely have to work on addressing them and actually grounding yourself and reminding yourself that we're all on our own timelines. Like, it doesn't matter what your friends are doing, what your friends or family expect of you as well, and what society expects of you, because actually none of that matters, because you could tick all of those boxes by the time that you told yourself you would and still feel deeply unhappy. And I think that's when it can be quite dangerous, when we feel like we need to reach those certain points in our lives and think that they're going to fix things. Like, oh, well, if I buy a property, then I'll be happier. If I just get married to that person, our relationship will flourish. If I just have a baby, then I will feel more fulfilled in my life. Those major things in our lives, I think, should come from a place of pure joy and happiness and a genuine desire to have them, rather than out of a place of, well, if only it will make my life better, which is so hard. It's so hard, especially when, as I say, these external factors are telling us that we need them in our lives. So yeah, I definitely found myself in a bit of that mindset, I think, with buying this particular property, and I was in a big rush. As you know from previous videos, I went through a big, like, life change. Is it 2 years ago now? Yeah, coming up to 2 years next month. That's crazy. This month, yeah, wow, where's the time gone? So within that first year, I wanted to do everything at once. And I think this is very stereotypically, I'm going to say now, but very much something that a lot of women do when they go through big life changes. It's like, we are gonna level up and we are gonna do everything we can to almost like reinvent ourselves for the better and grow as a result from those major life changes. And for me, it was about doing my yoga teacher training. I wanted to develop my personal practice and also gain that qualification. I started my business. I launched Smart Skin, my beauty brand, and I was like, and I want to buy a house. Don't know where this came from. Well, I guess it had always been on the trajectory, but it all happened very fast and I rushed into it, and I do think I should have done things slightly differently. I wasn't in the right headspace to just go and buy a house. I didn't ask for any help or advice. I wish I'd asked my friends and family for more advice, but I just got it in my head and I'm quite an all or nothing person, which can work to my detriment sometimes. And I was like, yeah, right, that's it. I'm going to view all the houses within like a couple of months. I found one in an area that I've never lived in before. And even though it's still in London, London is very different, like all the different pockets. If you're from there, or even if you've visited, you'll know what I mean. It's like every different corner of London is like a different city. And I've always lived west. So I started in Hampstead, then I went to Notting Hill, then I went to Fulham, went back to Notting Hill, and then I was like, to buy a house, I'm gonna go southwest. I've never lived south of the river, and there is this big divide in London as well with being north or south of the river, and I've barely spent any time south, let alone lived there. And had a few friends living around there, so spent the summer getting to know it and viewing houses around there. It's also more affordable, so I could get more for my money, as well as being very set on buying a property. I was like, it has to be a house. It has to be like a standalone house to myself. I don't want a flat anymore because I'm an adult and I'm turning 30 and I don't want to buy a flat. What? I've always had like the best time living in flats, so I don't know why this was in my head. And the other thing was I wanted 2 bedrooms and a garden. And in London, I mean, yeah, the budget, the cost of that is just extortionate. But I got it in my head. I was like, yeah, to be a real adult, I'm going to be on the property ladder and own a house with 2 bedrooms and a garden. So that's why I started looking in Southwest, and found this converted gatehouse, which is very unique, very quirky. It felt very me, very light. And for me on my own, I was like, this is perfect, it feels right. So I just went in and bought it. I had one friend view it. It was actually my friend's boyfriend that came with me, who was available at the time to just like, you know, check it out with me. And, you know, but that was the only person I actually had on my side, I suppose, to give me any advice, which I'm so grateful that at least I had one person. But in hindsight, I think I should have really taken my time and not just jumped in. So anyway, moved in September, and it has never quite fully felt like home. And I don't know if it's the property itself, or if it's the area. I think I definitely, what's the word? Compromised on many aspects. So I think I'd be far happier in a more spacious flat, like 1-bed apartment in an area that I love, rather than a more compact, smaller house in an area I actually don't know that well. And I've struggled to feel like there's a community, which is what is so important to me. Wherever I live, I need to feel like I'm part of a community. It needs to feel like a village, and that's really lacking in my area, unfortunately. Maybe over time I would feel it, but it's a very different London vibe to what I'm used to. So anyway, it hasn't quite felt like home. And then I think coming out to Bali in April was just like, oh my goodness, I can breathe and I feel like I'm home, and there's the beautiful sunshine and the beaches. It's really important to me to have water nearby. I grew up in Brighton in I grew up in West Sussex, and mostly in Brighton and Shoreham along the south coast, and the sea is so important to me. Not that you have that in London at all, but yeah, I think coming out to Bali, I just felt very at home and very happy, and like a weight had been lifted. I feel free here, and just like I can be myself, which is a really lovely, lovely feeling. And so when I came back to London, having spent those 7 weeks in Bali, I found it all quite claustrophobic. I think you would, going back to a city from an island anywhere, you know, it could be any beautiful tropical island, to then going back to a city, you would feel a bit like, oh, suddenly can't breathe again, feeling that weight weighing down on me again. And my house suddenly felt very small and pokey, and it's a small compact house anyway, but I think having been used to the space in Bali, it suddenly felt much smaller, and just like the city as a whole, it's a very different dynamic in terms of living. Yeah, I think going from quite a peaceful, more simple life to then suddenly like all of these decisions having to be made every single day, as like mundane as they seem, collectively can feel like a lot of pressure. And I suddenly realised like where a lot of my stress and overwhelm can come from, that I think most people feel in a city, but you don't necessarily know it's there. It's just like this underlying consistent overwhelm and stress that we think is normal, and you only really realise it when you separate yourself from that world and take yourself to somewhere that's a lot more calm and a simple way of life, I suppose. So I definitely felt this heaviness being back in London. Having said that, this all sounds quite negative. It was very refreshing going back to London as well, to my normal life, to my world, I suppose, that I'm used to, and especially catching up with my friends and family. It was amazing. So I landed on the Thursday night, had just the night and day in London, and then Saturday morning went to Brighton to what I thought was going to be just a little catch-up family barbecue with my parents and my grandparents, and it ended up being a surprise birthday party because I'd had my 30th birthday in Bali. So I got home and it was just magic, like seeing all of my friends and family in my garden, and I was completely blown away. I've never had any kind of surprise birthday party like that before, so that felt really special, and so many memories made, and I just felt so loved and so full of happiness and joy, and felt so grateful to have these amazing people in my life. And yeah, that was beautiful actually. I'm so fortunate to have that. So I loved so many aspects of being back home in England, but generally I couldn't feel fully settled being back. It felt like I still had a lot of time left in me in Bali. So I think I ended up spending 3 weeks in London, had my meetings, caught up with people, saw my friends, socialised, went to a couple of lovely events, and decided to get back on a flight to Bali quite spontaneously, and booked a villa where I am now, I think like 3 or 4 days before flying. And Bali is now so busy because borders have opened, so yeah, lots of people are coming and going, so it's even a lot busier now compared to when I first flew out in April, which is crazy. It's amazing though, that like the energy's great here. It's very positive and upbeat, and it feels very exciting, but it also means it's very hard right now to book hotels and villas, and I couldn't get hold of a villa like I was in before for those 2 months. But I found this really cute bungalow, so it's split on 2 levels. We're upstairs right now, and yeah, it's just really sweet, as you can see, like wooden Bali style cabin, I suppose, and my bedroom and bathroom is downstairs, and then there's this beautiful like communal pool area, and I think there's probably about 8 bungalows that are exactly the same as this, all around the pool, and it's really lovely and very peaceful. I'm surrounded by rice paddies, like 360 everywhere you look is rice paddies, which is very unusual for Canggu, because Canggu is a very busy place in Bali. So yeah, I feel very lucky to have found this place so last minute. I don't know if there was like a cancellation or something, because it was the last one. All the others are taken for like the next few months, which is mad. So yeah, this is where I'm at now. I'm back here for the month. Got here on the 1st of July. I leave on the 1st of August. So I've got a real decent amount, like a chunk of time back in Bali, and it feels so good to be back. Although I must say, it's also been quite unsettling, because when I landed on Friday, I had that like heart-sinking feeling where I was in the airport in Bali, having landed, having done this like awful long journey, waiting at the conveyor belt for my luggage to come around, and it never arrived. And then I go to the luggage desk and they say, yeah, actually never got to Bali. It's in Dubai, which is where my layover was, which was really frustrating, but they were like, we have flights every day from Dubai to Bali, so you should get this within 24 hours. We'll send it to your villa. And then the next day I receive an email saying actually it never even got to Dubai, it hasn't left London. So that was on Friday. I'm now filming this on Thursday, so almost a week later, and I don't have my luggage and they haven't located it anywhere. So that was hugely disruptive, I suppose, in returning back to Bali. And there's something about this Bali energy where a lot of people talk about it here. It's like the Bali energy either welcomes you here or you can have a really tough time. And I'd heard about this, and touch wood, I've only ever felt welcomed in Bali, and it's always felt like a very warm place for me. And so having this quite unsettling thing happen, I suddenly panicked and I was like, oh my goodness, is this the Bali energy of it like not welcoming me in that I've heard about? But then I spoke to myself, had a little word, and I was like, no, Niomi, this is not about you. Don't take this personally. This is actually happening globally. I think airports are really struggling at the moment with like the new like crazy traffic of people wanting to travel with borders opening, and airports are also severely understaffed. Staff are so underpaid in airports. And I actually received a really lovely message this morning from a girl saying, hi, I saw what happened about your luggage and just want to say the airports are just really struggling right now with the amount of people and how understaffed they are. And she was like, we're trying to sort the problems every single day with luggage and just general like issues, and it's really tough. They're really overworked. So I feel complete compassion to the people that are working in airports right now. I can only imagine how stressful that must feel. So I know they're doing their best, and I know this is absolutely nothing to do with me and Bali energy. This is just like a logistical thing that's happening globally right now with airports and travel. So it's just unfortunate. And I was one of the unlucky ones, like hundreds and hundreds around the world. So yeah, can't take these things personally or overthink them. Hopefully I get my case back. And if I don't, then I'm just going to see it as a sign to live with less things, which is absolutely fine. I'm sure half of the things in my case I don't need. It's just been quite a strange few days coming back to Bali where my focus has been on repurchasing my things. So it's just been a little different, I suppose, coming this time around, a little unsettling, but step by step I'm getting there, and it's generally, I would say, very good to be back, other than this little blip, which might just be a little test that life likes to throw our way sometimes, and see how we deal with it. And I think hopefully I've dealt with it okay. Had probably one little breakdown where I was just like, oh, this is so hard, but no, it's all good. So that's where I'm at right now. And in terms of like I guess a life update, like where I'm feeling about the future with where I'm going to be located, my dream would be to be based between Bali and London and just spend a few months here, a few months in London. Logistically, I have no idea where I'm going to be at with like my property in London, whether I put that on Airbnb. That could be an interesting one, and who knows where I'll be for my time in London. I'm very fortunate though to have my parents' place in Sussex, so that's always an option. And yeah, would love to just spend a few months a year in Bali. If I can make it happen, I will. I would love that. And I'm just realizing actually that we don't have to be so future focused. We don't have to be so tied to where we are. I know it can be really, really tough if your job ties you down to one place. I completely appreciate this kind of lifestyle isn't accessible to many, many people. But I do think what COVID has taught us in the past couple of years is that we can work remotely. And if you're willing to work on a different time zone, you can make it happen. I've seen it here with many people that are still working on London time zones, which is tough. It's not ideal, but it can happen. And I find that really inspiring to see people that are just making a life for themselves that they know is going to make them happy. And whether that means relocating to a different country, and maybe you have to work a little bit harder to work on that a different time zone to where you're living, so be it. If it's going to create a life that you love, then I think it's worth it. And I'm still navigating this, you know, I haven't got this sorted out, I haven't, you know, figured it out at all. I'm still learning as I go and just taking it step by step, and I'm trying not to be too future focused, which I definitely was before. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, with these timelines that we often find we have to stick to, with all these pressures, I'm actually trying to remove those pressures and just take it a day at a time and go with the flow, which isn't easy for me. I'm such a planner and a strategizer, and I need to know where I'm going to be in the next few months, and I've definitely found myself sat down with a notepad and pen and being like, right, next few months, here's the plan, here these dates, here those dates, and it's actually quite stressful. And I think removing those pressures can make your life a lot easier. So yeah, I'm trying to just stay more present, less future focused, go with the flow and do more of what makes me happy. And I really hope that with the purpose of the content that I'm making on social media, whether it's YouTube and Instagram, that it can inspire others to do more of what makes them happy too. So I hope you're feeling that through this video. Take a little piece of it away with you and maybe apply it to your daily life, whatever feels good for you. But yeah, thank you so much for following me on this journey. I know I haven't been uploading much on YouTube, but I've been trying to just stay very present and navigate this new life, I suppose, that I'm living, and figuring out how work looks around that as well. Just touching on work and career, I suppose, I'll fill you in where I'm at the moment. I would love to rebrand, I suppose, my whole YouTube and my Instagram and start creating more content. I feel very inspired being in Bali. I want to take my time with it though, so it's why I haven't thrown myself back into YouTube since being in Bali. I really want to do this the right way and work with the right people around it. And I'm creating a new team at the moment in London, working remotely, and I would love to create that in Bali as well, so that it's a very smooth transition if I am going to be splitting my time between the two places. And then excitingly, I probably shouldn't be like speaking this openly and candidly about it and just be like, bam, here's the new thing, but I like telling you part of the process. So the thing that I'm most excited about and focused on right now is creating a podcast. So I feel like a lot of these conversations, to be honest, would probably be more appropriate for a podcast. I think that's a great platform to have very open, reflective, deep and purposeful conversations. So the idea of a podcast really excites me, and I'm like itching to get started. But again, I don't want to rush into it. I want to do it properly, and I want to create it with a team rather than just doing it spontaneously, which, as we've discovered from when I was talking to you about how I jumped into buying the house, I am very inclined to do. If I get an idea in my head, I want to make it happen right now. But I'm actually really working on taking my time with these things and doing them the right way so that they're done in a really professional way. So I'm excited about the podcast, and one day, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm trying not to be too future focused, but I definitely see a goal of mine in the future to get back into publishing. So I would love to write more books. I have my one cookbook currently called Eat Smart, and I published that in 2016. Have no idea where the time has gone, but I would love to re-explore that world of publishing. So yeah, we've got the rebrand of YouTube and Instagram, my new podcast, books in the future. There's a lot that I want to do, and then re-establishing a team here and in London. So it's all very exciting, positive stuff from here on out. So that is me in a nutshell, in a 30-minute nutshell. Thank you so much for being there and following me on this journey. I know I am not the most consistent person when it comes to YouTube, holding my hands up, I know, but it's definitely a goal of mine now to get back into content creating on YouTube and Instagram. I'm meeting lots of very exciting, incredibly creative people while I'm here in Bali creating that team. So I'm very, very excited to see how the next few months pan out. It's a new chapter. It really feels like I'm on the cusp of something very exciting, and I guess it's the start of a new era. I'm feeling very, very excited and motivated and inspired. So thank you again for just being there, supporting me and following me along on this journey. I'm sending so much love wherever you are in the world, and I hope you have the most beautiful day. Lots of love.